All right, good morning, everyone. We're a little early today for the Remarkable Edge show, but that is okay. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the Remarkable Edge live show series where bold execution meets brilliant breakthroughs. You are entering this space where elite professionals and high performing organizations elevate their leadership, amplify their authority, and dominate their industries. I'm your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V, the Brilliant Solutionist, and I work with thought leaders, industry titans, corporate executives, and trailblazing intra and entrepreneurs to bridge the gap between expertise and influence, turning high level vision into high impact execution. I don't just develop leaders over here, I position them as the definitive authority in their industries. So, unlike traditional leadership programs and theoretical strategies, I deliver real world, real results driven solutions that establish you as the authority in your field, optimize your decision making, and create lasting market dominance. Why? Because authority isn't given, it is claimed. So, if your organization is ready to build high performing leaders who dominate their industries, let's make that happen. So today we are talking about the fear of success and why high achievers or elite performers secretly sabotage themselves and how to stop it. Yes, we've talked about that. You've heard that topic before, but we're going to take a deeper dive into that. I've given you a full description down in the giving you a full description of the episode in the feature section or right below this episode. And there are some things that I will want you to consider is to subscribe to the show at drvernitaglenn-white.com/remarkable edge so you can get updates and behind the scenes insights. And then consider joining our exclusive Amplify Your Authority Lounge, which it is a group or a hub, but comment the word lounge down below if you want to hear more about that, especially for my people who are almost anti-group. I got something anti, like, another platform group, but I have something for you. So we're going to take a deeper dive into topics about leadership, and part of the focus, because I do want to start talking about a current event, is talking about AI, data driven leadership, and the illusion of progress. So there was an article I read from Forbes, and it was about the C-suite for the CIO. So I know we hear the C-suite, but I don't think a lot of people really understand the breakdown of that. So this one is, I think, Chief Information Officer. And the article was talking about AI and how most leaders are either completely avoiding it or using it the wrong way, or they are not optimizing the use of AI. And part of it was about the data. I love data. I am a data girl. That was part of like my dissertation. And the looking back on it, wasn't fun going through it, but looking back on it when I was in my doctoral program, I took a lot of research courses about statistics and understanding big data. And I actually had to use programs back in the day like SPSS. I really don't even know what the updated version is. And had to do all those factor analysis and things like that with data. But then you realize that it's fun to collect data and companies like to have data, but it's like, what are you doing with that data? How are you using that data? And, how, when you're running the scores, what are the results telling you? And then when I worked with the district, and I did the school district, and we looked at all of our student data, our test scores and demographics, like everything we could think of, we had to say, what was the story that the data is telling us? There's a quantitative side and a qualitative side of the data. And you can use this right now in multiple areas of your life, but we're talking about in your business, also in your career. So when we're thinking about AI, you're probably getting a lot of data and collecting it, whether it's collecting it from your customers or collecting it from your team, right? And it's like, well, how are we going to move forward in whatever direction? And we're just going to let AI run the data. We're going to let AI tell us where the problem is. But what the article found out is that the leaders that were in charge of that data, they were just running reports and not knowing exactly what to do with the reports. And they were expecting AI to say, okay, this is what you do. And I think AI is great. And I'm gonna tell you a story about how I was involved with AI way before I realized that it was AI. But anyway, because AI is not new. I think it came up in the late 70s or something like that. But a lot of leaders are looking at it and they're saying, okay, we're doing what we're supposed to, so we don't know why we're not getting the results that we're looking at, because we run the analysis through the AI, but it's like you still need the human to understand what the data is telling you, and to make sure that you are looking at the appropriate data that aligns with your company vision and your mission and whatever the goals that you want for whatever team that you're looking for, looking to enhance. The same thing in your career space, especially if you're an entrepreneur. There's a lot of data you can collect, and it's not always numbers. That's why the qualitative side, and I, for my dissertation, I did both, and now I'm like, oh, this is how I'm going to use it again. What are the things that you're collecting? What are the artifacts that you're looking at? Whatever the goal is. That's why, you need to have a direct conversation, comment leadership down below, to have a direct conversation to make sure that you are looking at the right things. But you get to look at all the data that you're collecting, saying, what story is this data telling me? What are the numbers telling me? What are these collection points telling me? And so what the article found is that so many leaders are doing that, but they are avoiding, taking a deeper dive into understanding the analysis of the AI. Understanding the analysis of the data that the AI is generating, or they're completely avoiding using AI in that area. Now, some people may say, oh, it's just a fear of not wanting to do something, like it's fear of failure if they get something wrong, but it's not. It was a fear of success. One, that if I use the technology and it speeds up this decision-making process, then that's going to require me to go to a higher level. That's going to require me to take on more responsibilities, because now I don't have to allocate my time to do this task, right? Or another thing is like, well, if I use AI and it tells me that I no longer the data is no longer telling me that this section or this part of my company is relevant, or I can do something different, then I have to step up as a leader and take charge and do that. And so it's going to make the company grow. It's going to generate more money for me and my team or whatever. But I don't know if I'm ready to handle that. So the article found that it's not so much that the leaders are anti-AI or anti-tech, although that is a case, and that's another conversation for another day. But it's when we are faced with a solution to a problem that's no longer been there, then it's like, oh, I can't use this as an excuse anymore to move forward, and I'm not moving forward. That's a self-sabotage. You're bumping up a personal glass ceiling, and you're like, okay, I don't know if I'm able to handle what is going to happen moving forward. Let me break this down and give you another type of example of how this happened to me in real life. Now, this is before I knew all of this. Well, I was still a doc student, and I was already a data girl. Like I told you, like even in my career, my background, I won't get too much into detail, but when I worked even as a mathematics teacher, I was over a mathematics department. We always had to look at data and benchmark scores and all of those things, right? So I already knew this world of looking at data, but it just got enhanced when I came into my doctoral program and learned all those things. Okay. So as I was getting ready for my figuring out what I want to do for my dissertation, I was introduced to this concept. I don't want to say the name because they merged into another company, but back then it was just kind of like starting out, and where we used little avatars to train people on it was in the education department, so it was kind of like training people on how to deal with parent conferences or how to interact with students. So they would go into this room, and then they would interact with these avatars that were already pre-set up to have certain behaviors and things like that, and they would interact with you. Now, there was a human on the other side of that putting in the data, but they would interact with you in real life to see how you would handle certain conversations. And then it morphed into different trainings for education leaders, and how they would have certain conversations based on different topics and things like that. So I was like, oh, this would be great for a part of my dissertation. I would love to see how this would work. And if we gave the system a scripted like lesson plan or scripted outcomes, then our students can go in and teach the lesson, and then the avatars would respond accordingly based on the data we had already input. And so at that time, my main advisor was like, well, I don't know. It's kind of risky. It's new, because if your data finds out that this particular program doesn't work, and the dean of the school had already put massive efforts behind this, then it's going to look poorly on you as a doctoral student. And it's going to cause troubles for you for your dissertation. But then I realized, like, looking back on it now, I was like, it wasn't a fear of failure as to if this does not work. It was, even because part of the dissertation is research and practice. So if I fail, so what? I don't want to say fail. Like, if the results were unfavorable, so what? I did the practice in research. Like, I did all the things, right? And it could have enhanced what was happening, or it could have been like, hey, this is a limitation. This is what you all need to focus on, or this is what you should focus on. This is a gap. Anyway, so it wasn't so much of that. I think it was a fear of success. And it was, one, if she didn't understand what was happening, then she couldn't vouch for it, because then it would cause her to step up, or it would have positioned me in a place that was above the other doctors, not in like an arrogant way, but something totally innovative outside of, the typical mathematics space. And then so it was like, well, what is that going to look like for you? Are you going to be able to handle, all of that coming, what's coming to you, that responsibility? So I know that was like a roundabout way of saying that that was part of fear of success, and it was self-sabotaging. And me, now I'm not a child at this point. Like, I'm in my late 20s, going, it was, yeah, late 20s. I think I was like almost 30. So I'm a full grown adult, had a career already. So it was like I could have advocated for myself, but I didn't tap into my personal leadership, and I allowed that to self-sabotage me, spiral into this whole thing. I could have been a part of this big project that is still going on today under a new name. I mean, it all worked out, but I wanted to tell you that story to show you the importance of leadership understanding technology, and now in this space of AI. So it's not just, oh, because as a leader, I tell my team, or I myself use the technology, or I'm, focusing on using AI. It is how you're using that. And are you able to interpret the data? And then are you able to work through your own beliefs and your outdated beliefs, and your bump up your own value system to say that I can step outside of this and lead my team, correctly, because you have to expand yourself. Every decision that you make, I don't care if it's in technology, I don't care if it's in finance, I don't care if it's in marketing, or all, whatever your position is, it starts with you and your internal things and what you are currently battling. And this is why you're not making certain decisions. And this is how you're self-sabotaging yourself. So that was the current event for today. I thought it was a very interesting article. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Again, it came from Forbes, talking from the CIO part of the C-suite, and how leaders are not using data appropriately while they're using AI. Again, so it's like, oh, we use AI, we're getting all this data, and then they're like, well, it's not working. And it's like, well, no, you have to interpret the data. Like, you still need a human. All right. So let's jump into how you may be self-sabotaging yourself as a leader, and then what to do about it. So yes, I said fear of success is a thing. And a lot of people talk about the fear of failure. But here are some practical ways to think about that. If you are an executive at whatever level, or if you're trying to go up for another promotion or step into another opportunity, you might keep telling yourself, oh, I'm not ready, or I need to go learn this, or I need to go get another certification, or I need to, work on this some more. And, because you're like, I'm not ready. No, the truth is, you may not think that you're ready for what's going to be on the other side of that, but to move into that space, you are ready, because you have certain years of experience, and you have certain education, you have the credentials for people to even consider, or for you yourself to consider going into that phase, whether that's going into business, whether that's going into getting a promotion, whether that's going into another type of career. For your brain to consider going into that direction, you are already ready. Now, will you still have to learn some things? Absolutely. But you are self-sabotaging if you're not taking that extra step. And you can still tie this back into, being a leader in technology. Is if are you surrounding yourself with the people to say, like, you're the leader, but do you have to know every single thing that you need to know before you make the decision, or can you use the resources around you? So that's also part of experience and showing you that you are already ready. Another thing is thinking about, and again, we could tie this back to, our current event, looking at AI and technology, and using data and making sure that you have true data driven results. Before I say this, that has been a buzzword even when I was way back in my undergrad time, about, oh, data driven results, and people are still not using that appropriately. Like, just because it spits out the data, you still have to look at the number of people, the number of variables, and does it align with the milestones and the goals that we're seeking. So I just want to put that out there, just in case people are saying, oh, we use data, but do you use it appropriately and to make actual decisions? All right. So something else that you can think of, that you're not making a decision, and why is it fear of success? Because you're probably afraid of making the wrong decision. But here's the thing, you as the leader, you are equipped enough to where if you do make the quote unquote wrong decision, you know how to communicate and lead your team through that process as well. So if you're so afraid to make a decision, the what you typically do and how you're self-sabotaging is you make no decision, or you allow someone else to make the decision so that you don't have to do it, and that's not true leadership. And then you will never grow to know, if to become your best self in the position that you're in, because you didn't put yourself out there to make the decision and see what would happen. Because most times, if you really align with your star player, as I like to say, and then using all of the facts, in a previous episode we talked about the relationship between your intuition and then knowing the facts, and the using the data. So you do flow between the two. So when you've done what you're supposed to do, then you trust yourself to say, I am making this decision, but if it doesn't come out exactly, I know how to lead us through that process. So the wrong thing to do is not make a decision. So I would rather for you to move forward, make a decision, and be like, oh, okay, and then come back and reevaluate. And you can apply that in any area of your business or in your career. And you do know that this is also like self-sabotage, because I say that we use a lot of these words, and it's like, oh yeah, self-sabotaging, but what does that really look like? What is the practical side of that? One, it could be thinking about greater responsibility. And as much as, we like to say, I want to move forward, I want this, I want more money, I want to make more impact, I want to have more customers, I, want to be front and center, I want to have more followers, whatever it is, if you're not there, and I have to check myself too, if you're not at that cusp of of getting that, is you might be thinking about the responsibility that it would take to endure that, whether it's more eyeballs on you, more criticism, being in charge of more money, more power, more influence, more people, all of those things. The other part is scrutiny. And I don't know about you, even though we say, well, I don't care what other people think. Yes, you do, because you care about what the right people say. And yeah, you may ignore some people, but what if the scrutiny comes from the people that matter? Are you able to handle that? And if you're thinking about that and you haven't moved forward, and even though you want more, and you will probably be successful wherever you are stepping into your next, that is a way you're probably self-sabotaging, is thinking about the scrutiny. Also the pressure, it's like you're probably already like, oh man, I'm already doing so much, I'm already bumping up against deadlines. If I do succeed at this, because as brilliant as you're already an elite level performer, high achiever, you know that you're going to do the doggone thing, but you're like, oh my gosh, do I really want to deal with the amount of pressure that may come? And that is a way of self-sabotaging. And then so guess what you do? You avoid. You delay decisions, you overanalyze, and then you stick to outdated strategies. And again, that ties back into using AI and technology. One way is like, I'm just going to let it do what it do over there so I can check the box. Or, I'm just going to not focus on AI because, that's a fad. It's a trend, it's gonna die down, and I'm gonna stick to what's tried and true. And the truth be told is, yes, we love classics. I Looking back on things, I'm like, there are some things that are just going to be classic, whether you do in your professional space or in your business. However, there are things that can be innovated and updated, and if you're not going with the times, then you are going to be an afterthought. And so using AI and understanding how to leverage it with those classic strategies and with those things that are tried and true, but you're just bumping it up or you're enhancing it, then that is how you move forward, and that is how you work through your fear of success, because you have to face it. And fear is not a bad thing. It's just letting you know that, hey, we're bumping up against something that's new, something that may need to prepare even more for, or that's letting you know that I have integrity because I don't want to mess anybody or anything up. But that doesn't mean it stops you. It's just letting you know, like, hey, we're about to be at the edge of something, and then you as a leader push yourself through. So one thing is to make sure you identify. So how are we going to do this? We can call this the success expansion formula, just the name, because I know some people just like to have frameworks, and I'm one of those. So the success expansion formula is identifying your self-sabotaging behaviors, whether that's procrastinating and you think that's, oh, I'm just doing my due diligence. No, it's not. For those of you that are not leveraging AI or using any other type of technology, and again, this is where you do have to either have a consultant or a strategist to say what specifically do I use AI and what type of AI? Because I'm pretty sure you are already using AI somewhere in your business. We've been doing it before it became a thing, because it's been around forever. So understanding that you're already using it and not being afraid. When I had to work with teachers, when I was in the K-12 space, when I work with teachers and teaching them how to use the new technology. And I'm not going to say what technology, because I don't want to date myself. I know I look young, but I've been around. But we had to use this new form of technology, and people are like, oh, I'm just not. I'm going to keep using my overhead projector. I'm going to keep using this dry erase board because that was like innovative. It wasn't a chalkboard. And I'm like, okay. So we had these new, well, I'll say one. One was the Elmo, if you remember. I love that little thing, right? And people were afraid to use the Elmo. So I had to come in and support teachers on using technology and how it made sense. Like, and not just turning it on and say, I did it. No, how to help it be a part of your everyday experience. So that ties into like the due diligence. Like some people would just say turn it on and I did it, but no, you were procrastinating on how to integrate it. And so I have to remember what I said. Anyway, I get so excited talking about things like that. And so I'm just giving you that background to say that I do understand. And so it's easier to point out where you could be self-sabotaging or procrastinating if you don't have someone on the outside looking in to support you. And if you want to have a conversation with me, type in leadership down below. All right. So you're not doing your due diligence. You are procrastinating. And then over reliance on external validation. Oh, I need some more research, or this is how you're over relying on AI. Oh, let me just put it into the chat, or let me just put it into the system, and I can't move forward because I'm waiting on the system to tell me if I'm right or wrong. People have, first of all, we know that there are humans in helping the AI tool, so let's not forget that, right? They're just doing things at the bots and things are doing things at a faster speed. You don't sit there and just wait and say, oh, I can't move forward because I need this chat or this bot to validate my human thinking. All right. So let's not, that's a way of self-sabotaging and not move forward. So how do you use it? To speed up your research, to speed up your thought process, to eliminate all the brainstorming power that you would typically do so that you can operate at the higher level. So let's be careful that we are not just say, oh, I am using it, but you're using it for external validation and you're not moving forward. Another one is to think that you have to keep refining, keep refining, keep refining until something is, without flaws. and that causes you to miss opportunity. That's something I learned to do, especially when I was doing my dissertation. Like, it's interesting how like all these years later, all these lessons are coming back. You have to do things and do iterations. And I know people say imperfect action, and some people that I highly respect say imperfect action, but I don't like that word imperfect action, because for someone who literally is like, I have to have things right, and that's my programming, and I'm pretty sure that's similar to you, especially if you were the top student and making sure you got all the right grades and did everything right. You want everything right so you can get the A. And we've just transferred that conditioning and programming into, other areas of our lives. So the way for us, and I'm gonna say that I think you're with me, hearing imperfect does something, right? So I was like, okay, I understand the concept, but what is going to keep, what can I use to keep me moving forward? So it is iterative action, and something that you just do over and over until you get the results. Like, oh, I'm doing this experiment, I just have to go, similar to what I was doing my dissertation, had to do a proposal, they went to go edit, ripped it up to shreds, it came back, I got out my feelings, had to do it, same thing, until it was right to go to do the actual study. Then it was time to do the study, the dissertation committee ripped it up shreds, had to come back. So it was constantly, but I couldn't just keep working on it and letting weeks and weeks and weeks go by, because I would have missed the deadline, or it would have delayed graduation, or I wouldn't have been able to do a particular study if I was trying to get the thing perfect without feedback. So iterative action is, you have to go throw something out there. You do your due diligence. So don't mistake this and say, I'm just going to throw crap out there. No, you do what you're supposed to do, because you are the expert, you are the leader. Like, you know what you're supposed to do, but then you have to put it out there. And if the longer that you delay doing that, that's a way of self-sabotaging, and you're not opening yourself up for those opportunities, and like to say, opulent opportunities that are still coming your way, but because you're still in the lab, you haven't stepped out to see what's available for you. The second part of that is shifting from risk avoidance to strategic growth. So one example I have here is a healthcare CEO who delayed AI adoption, thinking that it was too risky, only to see the competitors gain more of the market share. So what was the real risk? And so some of you are probably in that position to where new tools are coming to you. And then I'm gonna break this down. So I'm gonna give you another example. When I was working in the K-12 space, and they had a new thing coming out with certain textbooks and things to go along with the textbooks to help the students. And I had so many teachers be like, I don't want to do this, I want to use the worksheet instead, because I know the worksheet works. And so I was like, all right, we'll see what the results are going to be. So then when it was time to do the new standardized test, and then those students didn't perform as well. Why? Because they were still stagnant on the one approach to doing what has always been done. So where they used to be top of the pack as far as testing, because they didn't adopt a new way of just giving their students new access to different ways to learn the material, then they dropped down to the bottom, and these other teams and students rose to the occasion and got higher scores. You can look at that in your business. If you're so afraid to not tap into something, not hire that person, or not, work with that consultant or that strategist, or not adopt that new form of technology because, oh, it may not work, it's too risky, I don't know, then chances are you're not going to get the results anyway that you were looking for. Now, you might be saying, you know what, Dr. V, I've done that. We've stayed true to what we were doing, and we have not dipped. But guess what's on the other side of that? Did you grow? Right? So there's one thing about, oh, we've maintained. Okay, cool. But what could you have? What were the possibilities of what you could have done had you explored those options? So shifting, talking about risk, to now going into calculated expansion. Two different things. I did a few episodes ago where we took a deeper dive into that. And then the third thing is actionable strategies for leaders and companies. What can you do? Establish a confidence model, and you can break this down however you decide that's going to be more beneficial to you, your team. You can also do this if you're a career professional, breaking down a confidence model where you are using all kind of data, whether that's qualitative or quantitative, to look at the insights and to make decisive decisions. So that way it helps you, like, okay, I'm going to move forward on this because this is what the numbers telling me, or this is what, the analytics is telling me. I'm going to move forward. And if it doesn't give you those actual results, that's not what you're focusing on. You're focusing on, I did something, I looked at the insight, and then I took the step. Right? Then you can start looking at the outcomes. But to build up your confidence is to move idea to execution, and do it as quickly as possible. And then thinking about the threshold of your leadership. And now this goes for people, even with the highest titles, there's still a threshold, like something you still bump up against, to where, I could make this decision, but I'm going to hold off and always what's best for the company. No, that's you and your personal stuff that you have to think about and that you have to work through so that it truly can be what's best for the company. So instead of you thinking about, oh my gosh, like, why am I hesitating or am I afraid of something? Think about it as a signal for expansion, not failure. So I know a lot of high level executives and high level entrepreneurs, they share these things behind the scenes. So if you want to share behind the scenes, let me know, because I do understand is that you don't want to appear that you have these moments of breakdown, and so you just stay where you are even though you're feeling internally like, I don't want to show the signs of discomfort because it looks like failure. No, you can still be brilliant and have some breakdowns. You can still have a little chaos going and still show up in a confident way. It's just reframing that discomfort into, okay, this is my signal to expand and grow. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. One thing I do want to share is talking about this concept of as a leader, there is a form of content knowledge that you need to know. And this is my whole dissertation. And I was like, I'm bringing back my dissertation because now it is even more relevant in this space. And it's, as a leader, why I feel, and it's not just I feel, I know for a fact because my research told me, and then the research that I found to support this told me this too. You can't just push everything off to someone else. So if you are the main person, and this goes to whether you're the CEO of a company, CEO of your own business, or CEO of YOU in your career, you can't just delegate every single thing and push it off and never look at it. You need to have you need to have a working knowledge of what you are dealing with. So going back to our current event, let's bring this back full circle. Looking at AI and other types of technology and making decisions. You can't just put that off on just the tech people, or you can't just put that off on VAs or contractors or outside consultants. You as a leader need to understand aspects of what they're telling you, and that's form of leadership content knowledge, and I can break that down, and I might do a whole training on that. So because I think that's being overlooked, you need a form of leadership content knowledge. Let me tell you what it looks like in my research, and then you can make the correlation and understand it through AI. During my dissertation, I had this whole thing about people who were high leaders supervising mathematics classrooms, and why there was a mismatch between what they were saying on the evaluation and what was happening in the classroom. And I went in saying that I think all leaders need to understand mathematics. They all of them should have a background in mathematics if they were going to support teachers at the highest level. That's where I went into the dissertation, the whole study. But then during the study, I realized it's not necessarily that they had to have a background, because I found some really high level leaders like area superintendents and superintendents who did evaluate, high level mathematics. Like, well, they're still making great decisions. How is that? It's because they took the time to have a working knowledge of the mathematics on top of their leadership skills so that they can make those decisions. So the people who were so focused on the leadership, because I have a degree in educational leadership, so just on those leaderships, or in your case, you may have business leadership or whatever, that type of just that leadership theory stuff, right? That is great to a certain point, but when it came to the practical side, they were lost. And so they couldn't help the teachers or their principals, to move into the right direction compared to the ones who had a working understanding. So we did this whole thing, and I came up with the tool to help them. If you don't have this working knowledge, you need to, in a way, forget about that tool that you're using and use this tool. And we found that because they were given this tool, they were better off to support the teachers and their principals and, the area superintendents to make those true data-driven decisions as it related to mathematics. Same thing with AI. Depending on the type of AI that you're using for your company, you, leader, need to understand and have a working knowledge of what the people are telling you, the actual experts, because like you're a fractional expert, but you still need to have a working knowledge so you can filter that through your vision and your mission and your goals. Let me know if you're tracking, and if you want more insights on that, or ask me a specific question, comment leadership down below, or just DM me and I will answer it. So the reason why I'm saying this is because you need to understand how to interpret any of the insights that AI is giving you. You can't just let it go off and do its thing because it's going to spit out what it's going to spit out. But you as the leader, you still have to tap into that skill set you have and filter that out so you can make the appropriate decisions and to know what to focus on and what to ignore, because all data is not appropriate at the at all the time, right? And then so that's whether it's financially looking at forecasts, that's whether it's looking at the performance of your team, that's whether it's looking at your customer retention or whatever it is, whatever the AI is giving you, you have to have a level of working knowledge so that you're not just blindly accepting the outputs. Some of you all know this when you're doing Chat GPT, you can't just, or any other Claude, who are the other ones? Y'all know, you can't just put in a prompt and whatever it spits out, you run with it. Well, you shouldn't, right? You are the expert. You are the CEO of whatever you're doing at the time, and you have to say, "Wait a minute, let me go back and look at this. Thank you for that input. How do I refine it? What questions do I need to ask to make sure that it aligns with what you are trying to do?" So that's a high-level way of looking at leadership content knowledge and why it is important for you leaders to have this, especially as it relates to data, because that's a huge thing that is happening right now, and how AI is coming in, because you're going to have so many people, and don't get mad at me, companies. You're going to have so many companies and consultants and, salespeople saying, hey, you need this tool, you need this AI, we're going to do this and it's going to do that. Fantastic. But are you going to be able to know what it's telling you? And are you going to be able to use those results as it relates to your big vision and your mission and your goals? So it's not enough just to ask it questions or to just, accept its inputs. It is, what are you doing about that? And are you working through your fear of success? Because you know that there are things that I need to do. I'm on the edge of my growth, and I have to lean more into this if I'm going to be the high level, like I say, affluent leader. And then we can talk about that because I did a whole thing on that. Some of the replays are down below about the affluent leader intensive I did. But are you going to show up as an affluent leader and amplify your authority, even if you're feeling uncomfortable? Because that's how the great leaders are, making the waves in this world, whether that's in your career, whether that's in the company that you're in as an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur running your whole thing. All right. So as we wrap up, I just want you to understand that your next level of success isn't waiting for perfect timing. No more AI tools, because yours doesn't care about that, or another quarter of data. It is waiting for you to trust yourself and act, because there's always going to be something that changes, but you are everywhere you go. You are the constant variable. And so it is all on you and how you implement and how you go. So I do encourage you to go look at your data, get some working knowledge. You're still learning, tap into the resources that you have, because your high stakes leadership and the AI strategies, they all come together, and they have to work together so that you are making the success data driven decisions that are required for you and for the people that you are impacting, leading, and serving. All right. So again, if you want to have deeper insights or a conversation, you can DM me or type leadership down below. I also want you to subscribe to the show so that you can get updates and insights and behind the scene content at drvernitaglenn-white.com/remarkable edge. And then if you're interested in being inside of an incubator to where we take a deeper dive into these strategies complimentary, type the word lounge. So there are 3 different things that I want you to do. Let me know which one. That's not what I'm supposed to do, but I got so excited. So if you want more insights and conversations, and you have a specific question on either how to use data, how to really really look at your data and what leadership content knowledge really is about, and how you can incorporate that, comment leadership down below or DM me. Subscribe to the show So you can get those insights and updates at drvernitaglenn-white.com/remarkable edge. And then if you are interested in the complimentary ongoing things that I am doing to amplify your authority, comment or DM me the word lounge so I can give you those updates. All right. Again, thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And I will see you next time where we continue to redefine what it means to be an elite affluent leader. So remember to stay bold, stay strategic, and always execute brilliantly. Until next time.